SABC head of news, Phathsiwa Magopeni, will reportedly challenge her dismissal in court. She was found guilty of misconduct for failing to prevent the airing of an interdicted episode of the investigative program Special Assignment. Magopeni claims political meddling and interference by some of the executives of the public broadcaster, including CEO Magopeni and board chairperson Musa Makatini, was indeed felt by her department. Especially, she's made allegations around the electioneering period where she says she had received a call trying to put pressure on the newsroom to put forward an interview with the ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. For more on this, we're joined by Campaign for Free Expression Executive Director and Wits Journalism Caxton Professor Anton Harbour. Prof, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the program. So, the City Press this morning reporting that Parliament or the Portfolio Committee is likely now to sometime soon summon the board of the SABC to explain what's been going on. Is the board a fundamental part of the problem at the public broadcaster at this moment?
Well, I think that's a very good question. You know, this has been a good board. It's been in place 4 years or so. It has been strong on fixing the SABC, on reasserting its editorial independence, and in putting it on a stronger financial path. So it's been a good board. Very worrying to see now that the allegations of editorial interference, that they seem to have summarily dismissed the editor-in-chief, who's done a good job in re-establishing the standing and credibility of the news operation. So it's a very concerning situation. She alleges that they are bending to pressure from the ANC, which has been very critical of her personally and of what she's done at the SABC. So I think it's good for Parliament to summon the board for these matters to be aired fully and publicly, because they are very concerning.
And Prof, as you say, this board had been praised as it took over the reins of the SABC after a very tumultuous couple of years, as was the head of news at the time. And that was also reflected in the growth, for example, in audience share for SABC News specifically. But when, in your view, did the wheels begin to come off?
Well, it began to come off when after the last year's elections, there were two ANC leaders in particular that publicly and very rudely blamed Phathsiwa Magopeni, the editor-in-chief, for their electoral losses by saying it was a result of the way the SABC covered the municipalities and covered the ANC. Subsequently, she was charged for a situation in which something had gone out on air against a court order. So that was a pretty serious problem. But people were really amazed that they targeted her as responsible for that, because I think we all know that the editor-in-chief is not the person who controls what actually goes out on air in programming at the end of the day.
But given
she alleged that.
Pardon me.
Yes?
Given all that's happened, from the allegations, the disciplinary hearing, what Ms. Magopeni herself has alleged as far as the CEO Magopeni and the board chairperson Musa Makatini, which the SABC has already said it's going to look into as far as editorial interference. When you read the letter that was sent to her, the public broadcaster says the relationship, the trust, has all but broken down. At this point, as she's going to challenge them, can that relationship be salvaged even after a possible court victory for her?
I don't know. I cannot judge whether that's the case, but it seems to me that if it breaks down and you want to challenge it, you do it properly. You don't do it at a time when allegations of editorial interference are in the air. You have to clear that issue first. So the timing is very odd, and that gives substance to her claim that it's the result of political pressure that they're doing this. But there's also questions over the process, over how they've conducted it, whether they've done it according to the book. So I think there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. And the sad thing is that it's reopened old wounds at the SABC, which seem to have been on a much better path. Mm-hmm. So it's become fractious again, internal conflict, internal dispute. And these things are most unfortunate.
How much faith, then, do you think there will be, or do you have as a media professional, in fact, who's followed developments around the SABC for a while, how much faith do you have in this upcoming process and investigation then into the allegations of editorial interference?
Well, I think as long as it's done openly, so that we can see exactly what's going on. You know, for the inquiry into the allegations against the chair and the group CEO of editorial interference, we have written to insist that this be an open process, that we see the documentation, that we can, the media can attend and publicize the hearing so that we can see that it's a proper and full process, and we will be watching very closely. So I think there's a good process, and if the process isn't good, it will be tested in Parliament, it will be tested in court, it will be tested at the CCMA, and we'll be watching very carefully to see that there is a proper process and that any editorial interference is exposed and stopped.
Professor Anton Harber, good to have your time. Anton Harber is the Executive Director of the Campaign for Free Expression. I've actually just lost that, for Free Expression, and Caxton Professor of Journalism at Wits University.